I'm going to start with a little bit of housekeeping. We will, of course, be recording this session and we will send you a link to the recording as soon as we can. And then if you have any questions while the presentation and demonstration are in progress, then please add them to the Q&A facility. If you have any technical issues, then please put a note on the chat. We will be monitoring that as we go through. Today's session is entitled Don't Rebuild the Stack, Automate It. Well, what do we mean by that? We're not here to say that we're going to completely automate your whole IT infrastructure and operations and security operations infrastructure. We're saying that there are parts of it which you can automate and where it makes sense to do that. Today, we're going to be looking at Unified Endpoint Management and in particular to a recent report that's come out by GigaOM. And I'm joined today by Mason Johnson and John Cassell. Mason Johnson works with service providers across North America and Australia to understand their endpoint management and security needs and helping them to scale their revenue via automation and orchestration. John Cassell brings a hamper full of certifications to the table, and as a senior solutions architect, he guides our customers and MSPs through proof of concept exercises and provides post-support, post-sales product support, I should say, and training. So I'm going to hand over to Mason. Don't forget to add your questions as we go on, and he'll explain our agenda today.
Sounds great. Thank you so much, Justine. So getting started, as mentioned, my name is Mason Johnson, and I am the manager for our MSP and MSSP practice here at Syxsense. My job today is really to set the table for a conversation around Unified Endpoint Management and why UEM matters, particularly in the MSP space. So agenda will be as follows, talking about what is Unified Endpoint Management, where does it fit into the tech stack for an MSP, and then why consider UEM in your stack. And then John Cassell will go over how UEM solutions stack up in the GigaOM radar report, and we will do some Q&A. So let's get started. As most of you are aware, Unified Endpoint Management platforms are essentially the convergence of technologies, typically including many point products required to provide services to your customers. The issue with a bloated tech stack is oftentimes the inefficiencies it creates. Service technicians are required to go back and forth between products and effectively service your customers. And in doing so, precious time can be wasted and vital deliverables can be missed in the go-between. The convergence of point products into a single solution creates a seamless and efficient process for your organization to provide critical services to your customers in the most effective manner possible. These features within a UEM platform include basic RMM functionalities such as device inventory and remote access to automated patch management. And in the case of Syxsense, even vulnerability scanning and automated vulnerability remediations. So why consider UEM in your tech stack? In this day and age, threat actors are now using advanced tools, automation, and AI to attack businesses at scale. And because of this, businesses are struggling to support expanding digital supply chains and remote work, which, if you think about it, is an opportunity for us in the managed services space. This creates even more demand for your already valuable services. That said, to meet this demand, MSPs must overcome skilled labor shortages and operational challenges to ensure consistent service delivery and profitability. And it's not enough to simply deliver these services. MSPs and MSSPs must be able to prove they are keeping assets compliant. So unified reporting is absolutely crucial. These factors lead to an even greater need for efficiency, and that is where UEM platforms come into play. So if you are considering UEM, how do you choose the right product? One way of doing that would be to get yourself a copy of the GigaOM Radar for Unified Endpoint Management Solutions. I'm now going to hand it over to John Cassell to walk you through what that report includes and how it can help you to make an informed decision. John, take it away.
Thanks everybody for attending today. My name is John Cassell, Senior Solutions Architect with Syxsense. And we'll be going through a few different pieces of information today. We'll be going through a live demonstration, as well as assessing the GigaOM radar for Unified Endpoint Management. And that's actually where we'll first start. We'll take a look at the report details, criteria, and then, of course, seeing where Syxsense came in with the analysis. So I have a tab up here, access to that report. A few different pieces of criteria again, looking at the executive summary, briefly, looking at market categories, mainly the deployment types, how each one of the competitors kind of line up there. And then as well, the decision criteria, that's the big piece, and then where all this stacks up in terms of the report. So UEM solutions bring user and device management together into one view and enable organizations to manage all devices through a single console, single pane of glass we've heard for, of course, many years now. Manage device lifecycle from enrollment to deactivation, ensure device sustainability, create and enforce security policies, patch and maintain devices and applications, enhance the user experience, and ensure devices meet requirements of an overall security strategy. There are also a number of different items that we'll be jumping into, as mentioned. But first, one of the prerequisites, how these solutions get deployed. We'll be going through a number of these. We're looking at some products like Manage Engine, Avanti, BlackBerry, Tanium, and then, of course, Syxsense. The deployment options, of course, would span between whether we're looking at SaaS products, on-premise deployments, cloud marketplace, or image options. We'll be mainly looking at the SaaS side of things today, as Syxsense is a cloud-based solution provider. And then as well, the decision criteria. Now, each one of these sections are broken down. We start with key features, and then we'll also jump into a few others. Let's see, emerging features. We'll get there. Jumping the gun, of course. All right, so in looking at the features first, remote connection support, reporting, user-centric management, and then scrolling a little bit to the right here, patch management, integrations, predictive analytics and AI, lifecycle management, and geofencing and conditional access. All of these, of course, are very important in terms of a UEM product. Syxsense falls pretty well into each one of these categories. We can see some solutions fall a little short. That's okay. May not be their strong suit. Integrations with Syxsense. One of the reasons why Syxsense actually performs most features on its own, built in-house, not requiring a lot of integrations there. But the good part is it is an open API, so we can certainly develop solutions on top and allow ourselves to connect in various ways. This, of course, is taken into account, obviously, with the overall assessment, which we'll get to when we look at the actual radar, where visualizes it much better than explaining it. Another section as well is going to be emerging features. This takes into account UX monitoring, managed services, increased automation, and endpoint security. This is one of the big topics that we wanted to focus on today, which is going to be the managed service aspect. This is an option through Syxsense. Now, not just talking about managed services, do we enable managed service providers? Absolutely, but we also allow for managed services to be purchased as well as an add-on to handle the change control and the tedious aspects of patch management, vulnerability assessment, and we do also offer vulnerability remediation. We did get, of course, a lot of praise here with 5 full stars. Jumping down into business criteria, flexibility, scalability, ease of management, ease of use, security enhancements, and cost. All products, again, assessed according to these categories. Syxsense was above 4 stars in every category, and a few of them also in the 5-star category. So we'll simply move on from there. Taking all of this data, of course, allows us to then be compared more directly through a single, of course, visualization here to all other products. We're now looking at the actual radar. This is broken down in a few different ways. All the manufacturers and vendors we saw in the space above, of course, are going to fall into here. We have 3 separate realms, I guess I'll call them, as part of the overall kind of circle here. We have leaders, challengers, and entrants. The more you go more towards the center, the more you'll become, of course, a leader. We also have an assessment for each manufacturer: forward movers, fast movers, and outperformers. Forward movers, doesn't seem like any actually made the list. So that's good for all manufacturers. We actually were all considered a fast mover and outperformer. So no one really kind of just barely got into the report. Just barely hit the, I guess, minimum viable feature set. but rather everyone here is somewhat mature. The outperformers consist of Hexnode, ScaleFusion, JumpCloud, Avanti, Manage Engine, and Syxsense. Where they actually fall within the radar is also very important because we have a few different axes here. We have maturity versus innovation and feature play versus platform play. The best assessment is really if you're sitting at the very center. Some solutions that have been around far longer are a little bit more towards the center, like Manage Engine and Avanti, and then of course Syxsense comes right after that. We all have our strong suits, of course. It's a matter of, what are we actually after? The focus of today is more around managed services and providers, and as well allowing for services to be provided to others so that, of course, we can enable that level of business. We're going to go into the additional assessment specific to Syxsense. So I'll find our name here in the list below and go through a few of those. Strengths, challenges, and as well, full write-up is also provided. We're going to look at the strengths predominantly right now, looking at areas where, of course, Syxsense is strong. User-centric management, integration with customer identity directories lets Syxsense provide dynamic options related to user and device policies. This is entirely accurate. It's a matter of what our perspective is. So we can still, of course, focus on the user themselves and forget a little bit about the asset, but we can kind of slide in between there. Patching has been our strong suit since the very beginning. Excellent patching of operating systems and third-party applications, supporting Windows, Mac OS, Linux, Android, and iOS. Of course, patch management is extremely different between each one of these operating systems. Similar in concept, very different in execution. We do fit into each one of these different operating system deviations fairly well. As well as there are some legacy operating systems we still patch, although I wouldn't recommend keep Windows 7 around, but technically we do still have those updates to get you up to the latest standard, at least in terms of when it was unsupported. Reporting. A notable feature of the Syxsense solution is its real-time reporting. Whenever I'm explaining to customers about what we offer and how we handle reporting, I usually break it down into 3 different realms, or methods rather. Monitoring, actually, I consider a form of reporting. It's, of course, more reactive. It's getting information and watching something run to then see if there's a change, but that is also extremely important, especially when we're talking about patch management, assessments, remediations, and even service monitors, let's say. The other 2 would be more of your month end. And then the third, or weekend, I guess, whatever company, if we're looking about a quarter, or we're talking about what's our policy at the end of the week. That's subjective, obviously. But then as well, the third piece would be compliance. Depends on our industry. We're talking about healthcare versus financial services, manufacturing. That also might be very different. So we want to fit into each one of those areas fairly well. The main topic, or rather focus again today, was for managed services. The focus of Syxsense's managed services is primarily MSPs and MSSPs, but it does offer this directly to organizations. We do as well offer it to managed service providers the same, so we can actually handle the change control aspect of it for our managed service providers, and they can focus more on the other aspects of managing their customers' devices. The plus within our licensing is within Syxsense Managed Secure Enterprise provides that extra level of support. Let's jump directly into the console and focus on that. And I have a few reports as well generated at the top just to provide some visualization. So you should now see the Syxsense console on the screen. Again, it's cloud-based, so easily accessed through any web browser. Right here on the very first screen, and by the way, before we started, all I did was log in. I didn't go anywhere else. This is directly where it takes me. The home screen allowing me to see the dashboard as soon as I log in. This is the perspective that I like to see. It's actually built off one of the defaults. I supply a little bit of a monitoring piece here at the top, and I like my geographical map. These can be changed out. Pretty much every little button here can be switched out. But this is what I like to see when I log in. Now, I'm only managing one environment. If we are a service provider, we can also band this out in different ways. We can have a different column for each customer. And of course, we can have an entirely different dashboard for each customer too. This is a very holistic, very high-level perspective, allowing me to see some of the details across all endpoints in my console. Cool thing, though, it's also clickable and interactive. So if we have customized or we are using the default in either way, we can click on these widgets and actually get to a section of the console that allows us to see the deeper view. There are devices in my lab that require patching. Will take me to that device list. I wouldn't recommend, maybe from a reactive standpoint, picking and choosing every endpoint, but that is still one of the options that we do supply along both sides of the spectrum. We are going to focus a little bit more on automation today, but this is also the other side that we can still provide an on-demand approach towards patching, towards software deployment, or of course, any troubleshooting tools you may want to get into. It's very easy to right-click these options and go directly to that task. Another piece about patching specifically, since it was mentioned in the report, all Windows updates actually are pre-supplied. They're also pre-vetted, curated by our content team. We've been doing this for over 10 years. Big reason for it, not a great track record with patch management across consumer and business space for Microsoft products, but it's one reason why we still provide the genuine content. It just won't be available unless it actually passes our testing. Good thing is it's still offered same day. There's no massive delay. It's not like we have to wait weeks for Syxsense to test. It's usually within just an hour or two. We have it in the console. And as well, it had passed our testing across not just our labs, but also beta customer environments too. Those that have approved to say, yes, I do want to pilot the updates early in my environment. Third-party applications supplied the same. So again, getting that holistic kind of, or rather diversified approach towards patch management. It's not just about operating system updates. That's only like, I think last time I heard the percentage changes year after year. I think it's 25%. And the other 3/4 would then, of course, be left untouched. Applications matter too. For other operating systems like Linux, Mac OS, we tap into those package manager tools as well. So although the model is a little bit different here, we can still patch it entirely. So 100% patchable when it comes to patch content. Additional definitions beyond patch management. This is pretty much everything else that would be considered a vulnerability or something that we should have an advisory on that we want to measure up against. They don't have to actually be vulnerabilities per se, even though the table is called security. There are a lot of informational items too. CIS benchmarks, level 1 and 2, are supplied as being fully detectable and nearly fully resolvable too. So about 98%, I think, total that we can actually resolve, given that almost every definition in this list has as well a pre-built remediation. Sure, we supply you with details. A new tab opens here, letting me see the impact, the full advisory that we've written up according to industry standard. But if we actually want to supply the remediation through the product, we can do so as well. Every definition looks a little bit different, but here would be one of the kind of pre-built workflows from a very specific basis for just this one benchmark. But we could actually, in this case, formatting, ejecting, removal media, misconfigured, we can reconfigure it. Everything's still visible, so if we want to make a change, we're welcome to. I just always like to mention that, as I've seen some solutions provide pre-built information, but then you don't really know what's going on. So of course, we want to dig into it and see what did Syxsense actually write, what has actually been provided. Maybe I want to do something a little bit different. Every customer has that power. Now, the main level of automation is done in Syxsense Cortex. This doesn't have to be too complex. I'm going to throw something on the screen that's going to be a lot going on. Policies don't always have to look like this. But the cool thing that you can see from the actual illustration, or the designer here, rather, the framework, is that it does allow us to visualize as well as track and edit, if we want to, the policies that are going down to endpoints. The reason these boxes are a little bigger here, I can actually click them. When we go back to those 3 levels of monitoring, it allows us to monitor. Of course, when the process is complete, we then get kind of into that second phase of monitoring. What happened? What was the end result? Am I now compliant, or are there still issues that I have to focus on? And we can actually throw those statuses into the workflows to do something more. I'm just going to create a really quick and easy workflow just for everyone on the call, just to kind of see how easy it is to build these policies out. By the way, there are hundreds of pre-built examples too that we can throw into the console that we can microwave, I guess, in a different way, reheat better to better match our organization, but they are generalized, so we don't always have to start a policy from scratch. In this case, though, I am going to start with a blank slate and create something new. I'm actually going to start with a free disk space check, just in case we're going to push this out to endpoints. And our goal here is, again, patch management. Going to focus on that for today. Let's start actually with a free disk space check, and we'll just check the C volume. We're not going to get too complex with this one. We'll check the C volume, assess 10 gigs are free. If not, we can do something else. If 10 gigs are not free, then we're going to go ahead and execute disk cleanup. Nope, we don't have enough space. Well, that's perfectly fine. We can execute disk cleanup and choose all the different categories. Probably don't want to choose every single one of these, but it's our choice. We'll execute disk cleanup. These are the options, of course, with disk cleanup that I'm going to go ahead and supply. There's some sub options too. We can get a little bit more into it, but that's the basic route. If it does have more than 10 gigs of free disk space, I then want to go directly to a patch policy. Now notice that this action is called scan and deploy. It's still going to pre-detect. We're not blindly deploying updates. We never do. We always ask and assess, do you need the content now? Maybe something changed from yesterday to today. Yeah, we'll have a record of what happened yesterday, but we want to, again, on demand, reassess the record before we're about to download updates and apply them. The answer here, though, for patch management does not have to be complex. We can go back to the content like shown on the previous screen and divvy up deployment rings and choose different patch groupings. You don't want to in this case. We want it to be easy and pick up anything that is outstanding. We can move this around as well if we want to change the design. After success of a full patch run, we then want to get to the vulnerability remediation category. It means that anything that is considered an optional, or no, let me phrase that, I guess above a patch will be considered another remediation, different categories here. It could be CIS benchmarks. It could be just some best practice changes against the local policies. So anything that does have remediation there, we also want to include. I'm going to drag this into the success of the patch deploy. And although a banner says here, be careful, there are a lot of deployments there that do make configuration changes. I'm okay with that because I, again, do want to meet best practices. And in the previous step, if nothing was deployed, still take the next step. Lastly, if anything fails, there's any issue here, my option for being notified is just going to be an email notification. So out of the failure of each one of these, I'm just going to send it directly to myself. And I'm also going to use the device name variable, which I can drag in here, letting me know specifically that this machine has failed the patch and remediation workflow. I could supply a lot more to it. I can actually produce a template, of course, be more about information about it. We can use the inventory data from endpoints to determine what had failed. And as well, we do have task information. I'm just going to keep this simple. As a notification, I can drag it wherever I want here. Overlap some of my connectors if I want. But what we want to, again, do is in case there's a failure, allow that email to be delivered. Upon success of the workflow, I can deliver another email. Let's just consider that this is a routine policy, but it's fairly consistent, or persistent, I should say, across the environment. So maybe this is a daily policy. Let's treat it as that. So I don't want to get bombarded with an email every single day saying success. Just let me know if there's an exception or an outlier. I'm going to call this, I've used this workflow design before, so I'm going to call it all updates and remediations. And we'll just call it that. I did not include a reboot, by the way. I do have another option for that, but I'm just going to leave this as deploying them, and then we'll actually detether the reboot for this sample. We apply another workflow where, of course, at the very bottom here, we do have reboot actions too. That's to ensure that end users agree, of course, with the deployment. I'm going to save and close this. Look at reports in just a second, but again, the purpose of this is that we want to produce have a workflow that's going to do a lot at once for us. There's a lot in the background, of course, when it comes to which patches, which remediations. We're doing a patch scan and a vulnerability scan, ensuring disk space, a lot of other steps we could include. I can link this to a lot of existing workflows too, but again, a very simple one. The last step, however, is how often is this going to run? It is not reactive in any way. When we talk about workflows, we want this to be on some type of consistent basis, whether it be every 30 minutes, probably a little bit fast for patching. Most don't even really think about patching, usually once or twice a month. Let's actually remove the minutes option. We'll go with maybe every 7 days. We can bump that up and go every day too. A lot of my customers do. We'll leave this a little bit simpler. And the last step would be who we'd actually dedicate this to. Service providers, this is what you're going to love. That is that we can dedicate different policies for different customers. We can use variables in different ways to allow for more variability, allowing dynamic targeting and whatnot. In this case, I just want to apply this to my customer 2 container and all sites beneath it. Data center doesn't have to be included. Of course, I can make a change there, which is probably a good thing. Actually, I'm going to target just site 1 within customer 2. That's it for a policy. As soon as I hit save, it will kick off roughly a minute later. Devices that are there will pick up the policy. They will start actively running. unless we want to choose a different time. We could do maintenance windows too. But the idea here is to set and forget the policy, focus on the next project. That's it. Now, there are different ways, again, to deviate from here. We could choose different schedules. We can go daily, weekly, monthly. We can say only run it at 10 a.m. every Saturday. This is a very easy one. I just want to, of course, show how easy it is to create, and then as well how simple it is to schedule and just move on to the next project. Lastly, for perspectives, I mentioned those other two forms of reporting. Maybe it's our month end and maybe it's compliance. A number of the reports in the console do give us this information as well, especially baseline reports. This says custom. It's one of the pre-built examples. It's just a customer-specific report, hence the redacted data. This is from an actual managed service customer. It is, however, a template that does exist today. It's just been customized specific to their data points, showing how many endpoints require certain applications or updates. This is a pre-patch report. So allowing us to see, of course, that overall exposure and where other information from the industry might fit in. CVSS scores, as well as vendor ratings, those are also very important. When we zoom out a little bit, we could be looking at other data like not a device focus so much, but for security teams, if your focus is on the CVE instead, tracking the vulnerabilities themselves, this would be more kind of in your realm, I guess. How many devices are affected by it may not be a huge deal to you. If you want to see it in percentage, you can do that too. But of course, overall, what are the top vulnerabilities that we've seen within a given environment? This again could be across every customer, or this can be customer by customer, or device by device. We can break it out even further than the customer themselves. Patch risk assessment is more of your month-end report looking at what's been occurring. This is from a 4,000 endpoint customer and banning out month after month. This is an active managed service customer, although at the time of the generation of the report, we hadn't yet patched November, so it's still looking a little outstanding here, but that was intentional. Hadn't gotten to the actual patch Tuesday. It was generated earlier, but it does allow us to see those gaps in case they do exist. Month after month in the past, if there is a gap, then we want to be notified, and as well, we want to visualize those patch gaps. Vulnerability, I guess that's at the bottom of each one of these. Vulnerability risk assessment also allows to track the overall vulnerability. This is an auditing customer, not taking part in the remediation space, but it does allow us to see the overall averages and the facts, which we saw going month after month. The average does go up and up, of course, with every change or every update applied. The vulnerabilities get disclosed, obvious. So the more that we're detecting, the more we'll show, of course, that number going higher until we remediate. We can band out different sites for service providers. This would probably be a transposed view of your customers instead. The diverse listing of all the operating systems, and then we could choose different numbers to band out here. The choice was only top 10. We could do top 100, all. It's really just, again, a choice of whoever's generating the report, but allowing us to view the overall exposure of the most severe misconfigurations. Now, that's what I've got for today. Wanted to, again, focus a little bit more on the automation aspect. I didn't want to get too nitty-gritty with it, but we do have that variable system that can allow for more dynamic capabilities. If anyone has any questions, please let me know.
Cool. Mason, anything you'd like to cover off?
That sounds great, John. Yeah, we do have some Q&A. So I will get right into that. A few questions popped in there, John. First one being, what sort of assistance do you have to support MSPs? Really, my answer there is that your success is our success. We're invested in helping you to grow your business. So to that end, we're going to offer you extensive training and onboarding, but not only at the beginning of your subscription, but also throughout the life of that subscription. You would not only work with myself or one of my counterparts, but also have a dedicated technical account manager who is more than happy to hop on as many calls as you need in order to feel comfortable using the platform in the most effective and efficient manner possible. And then feel free to throw any more questions in the chat, but I'll just go to the next one here. And that is, how is Syxsense licensed? Great question. Syxsense is licensed per device. So with that, you have access to as many administrators as you would like within the platform. And because of our emphasis on multi-tenancy, you can also give access to your customers and set up everything so that they only have access to their own environments, and also limit the features that they have access to if you would like. So let's see. One more question I had here is, how well does Syxsense scale? I would say extremely well, due to our focus on automation and orchestration within the Syxsense platform. And then also, like John mentioned there, we have our own services as well. So you can feel free to white label essentially our patch management as a service, vulnerability scanning and remediation as a service to push out to your customers. So still less work on your end, but still deliverable services to your customers. John, anything that you wanted to add on that scalability front?
Yeah, so the workflows like the one that I design, as mentioned, those can all be copied and generalized so that we can apply the same template to all customers. So we don't have to duplicate our efforts all the time, like select that workflow and copy 200 times for our 200 customers. So we can throw in variables into those items, which is a great method of course, referencing data directly from the asset or directly from the customer entity. So just a few aspects of scalability. Of course, the automation platform itself is client level. So there's never really ever a server side, contention issue. All devices pick up the workflow and run them independently. So again, that allows for full scalability. However many endpoints under management, we can handle all of them. So, yeah.
Perfect. No, I agree. That sounds great. Thanks, John. Well, I think that is about all the time that we have for questions. So with that, I will turn it back over to Justine. Thank you so much for everyone for attending. Really appreciate all of your time this afternoon. And yeah, go ahead, Justine, take it away.
Okay, Mason, if you could just pop up our final screen, that's great. If you're interested in becoming an MSP partner or MSSP partner with Syxsense, then you can scan that QR code or find us on the website. If you missed our recent webinar on compliance, you're probably aware that we're in the middle of a compliance sandwich. We've got SEC rules that have just come in on incident reporting, and we've got PCI DSS 4.0 coming up very soon. So we'll be producing some content on that. There's a blog on the website if you want to have a look at that, and our mini guide. So more resources there for you to help yourself to. We'll send you a link to the recording and also a link for you to access the GigaOM report itself. That's for a limited period because these things are chargeable normally, and we've sponsored that report so that we can provide that to you. Finally, if you want to meet the team in in real life, you can meet us at the MSP Summit in Las Vegas in 18 days time, so March 11th to the 14th. We're on booth number MSP 20, and we love to see you there and have a chat with you then. So thank you very much for your time this afternoon, and we'll look forward to seeing you on the next session.